Listen to me. If you want to be great, if you want to be so sharp, so intelligent, so ahead of the game that people can't even figure out how you think, you've got to outwork and outlearn everybody around you. I'm not talking about doing enough to get by. I'm not talking about cramming for the test and hoping you pass. I'm talking about living in a space where learning, growth, and improvement aren't optional, they're oxygen. You've got to want it so bad that the thought of being average keeps you up at night. You've got to be willing to pay a price most people aren't even willing to think about. You can't rely on talent alone. Talent might get you in the door, but knowledge, real, earned, applied knowledge, is what's going to keep you there and make you unstoppable. See, most people stop learning after they get what they want. They get the diploma, the job, the promotion, and then they put the books down. They stop researching. They stop asking questions. But the dangerous ones, the ones who can walk into any room and change the whole atmosphere with their presence, they never stop. They wake up hungry for new information. They treat the world like a giant classroom, and they take notes every single day. You've got to get to a point where you're not just reading books, you're devouring them. You're not just watching videos, you're dissecting them. You're not just listening to people speak, you're studying their words, their tone, their mindset. Every conversation you have is an opportunity to learn something new. Every situation you face is a chance to grow. And you don't just learn in your field. You branch out. You learn history. You learn psychology. You learn how the economy moves, how technology works, how people think, how trends shift. Because when you understand the big picture, you can see the small moves that make it all happen. While they're at the party, you're studying. While they're gossiping, you're grinding. While they're sleeping in, you're up early sharpening your skills. And I'm not saying you can't enjoy life, but you have to decide what you want more, temporary comfort or permanent power. I'm talking about building a mind so strong, so well trained, that when people hear your ideas, they can't even see the world the same way they did before. It's about hours. It's about discipline. It's about doing what other people refuse to do over and over again until it becomes second nature. People look at success like it's magic. They think there's some secret sauce, some lucky break. But the truth is, success is boring behind the scenes. It's repetition. It's reading another chapter when you're tired. It's watching the same lecture 3 times until you understand every concept. It's writing and rewriting your notes until they're burned into your brain. And while most people can't stand that kind of consistency, that's exactly what makes it so powerful. Because the moment they stop, you keep going. That's how you pass them. That's how you become untouchable. And let me tell you something, there are no shortcuts. You can't fake dangerous intelligence. You might be able to fake confidence for a little while. You might be able to fake results temporarily, but when the pressure hits, the truth comes out. And the only way to be ready for that moment is to put in the time. You can't just rely on what you already know, because the game is always changing. The market shifts. Technology evolves. People adapt. If you stop learning, you stop growing, and when you stop growing, you start dying. You've got to train your mind like an athlete trains their body. You don't go to the gym one day and expect to be in shape for life. You show up every day. You push past your limits. You track your progress. You feed your mind with the same dedication you feed your body. And the more you feed it, the more it demands. That hunger, that's what separates the good from the dangerous. And here's the thing, you don't have to be the smartest person right now. You don't have to know everything today. But if you outwork the person next to you, if you learn one more thing every day than they do, it's only a matter of time before you pass them. 1 hour a day might not seem like much, but in a year, that's 365 hours of growth they don't have. And in 5 years, You've built an arsenal of knowledge they can't touch. You've got to fall in love with the process of becoming smarter. Not just the big wins, not just the moments when people clap for you, but the grind that nobody sees, the late nights, the early mornings, the study sessions when you'd rather be anywhere else. Because every time you choose growth over comfort, you're building something they can't steal from you. They can take your money, your position, your opportunities, but they can't take what's in your head. And when you've been doing this long enough, something shifts. You stop chasing every little opportunity because you understand how to create your own. You stop needing to be told what to do because you see 3 steps ahead. People start coming to you for answers. They start asking you for direction. They start looking at you like you've got some supernatural ability, but it's not magic. It's the result of years of outworking and outlearning everyone else. This is where you become dangerous, because now you're not just reacting to the world, you're shaping it. You're making moves that people don't even see until it's too late. You're operating on a level they can't even comprehend. That's when the game changes. That's when you stop playing on their terms and start setting the rules. And all of it started with a decision. I will not be outworked, and I will not be outlearned. So, if you want to be dangerous, if you want to be the one they can't figure out, stop wasting time. Stop thinking you've got enough. Every single day, you either get sharper or you get duller. Every single day, you either get ahead or you fall behind. And I'm telling you right now, if you put in the hours, if you make learning a lifestyle, if you refuse to let anyone outwork you, you won't just be smart. You'll be dangerous. Let me tell you something. Everybody wants to win. Everybody wants the title. Everybody wants the reward. But the truth is most people can't handle what it takes to get there. They think the path is straight. They think the journey is smooth. But if you've ever tried to do something great, you know it's nothing like that. You're going to trip. You're going to fall. You're going to make mistakes that make you question whether you should even keep going. But here's where the separation happens. The people who make it, the people who rise above everyone else, they don't just survive their failures, they feed off them. They take that loss, they take that disappointment, and they use it as fuel. I'm telling you, your failure is a gift. I know it doesn't feel like it when you're in it. I know it feels like the end of the road when everything you worked for slips through your fingers. But the truth is, failure is the best teacher you will ever have. Success feels good, but it doesn't teach you anything. It just confirms what you already know. Failure forces you to ask questions. It forces you to look at yourself in the mirror and be honest about what you did wrong. It forces you to grow. You've got to stop running from failure. Stop avoiding situations where you might lose. Some of you are playing so small, so safe, that you haven't failed in years. Not because you're perfect, but because you're scared to try something big enough to actually test you. You're protecting your ego at the expense of your growth. You've got to flip your mindset and see failure for what it is. A lab. You're the scientist. Every mistake, every setback, every no you hear is just data. And the more data you have, the better your decisions get. When you fail, don't get emotional. Get analytical. I know that's hard because we take it personal. We attach our identity to the outcome. We think if I failed, that must mean I'm a failure. No, it doesn't. It means you tried something and it didn't work. Yet, the yet is everything. If you study that failure, if you ask the right questions, if you make the right adjustments, you're not starting over. You're starting smarter. I've learned that the most dangerous people aren't the ones who never lose. The most dangerous people are the ones who have lost so many times they've developed a resilience that's unshakable. They've been hit, they've been knocked down, they've been counted out, and they've learned how to get back up stronger. They've taken so many hits that when life throws another one, they barely flinch. That's power, but here's the problem. Most people let failure break them instead of build them. They take one big loss and they stop trying. They carry that pain like a weight for the rest of their life. They replay it over and over in their mind until it becomes their identity. They don't understand that failure is just part of the process. You can't become great without it. You can't become wise without it. You can't become dangerous without it. Every single time you fail, you're collecting tools. Tools you can't get from a book. Tools you can't get from a YouTube video. Tools you can't get from someone else's advice. You've lived through it. You've felt it. And now you know something most people don't. What not to do, what to watch out for, where the traps are, how to recover faster. That kind of knowledge is priceless. The people at the top, the people who seem like they're always winning, they're not immune to failure. They've just failed more than anyone else. They've tried more, risked more, put themselves out there more. And because of that, they've learned more. You've got to embrace that same mindset. Don't count your failures, count the lessons. You have to develop what I call bounce, back speed. It's not just about getting back up, it's about how fast you can do it. The longer you stay down, the more you start to doubt yourself, the more your energy drains, the more you start convincing yourself maybe this isn't for you. But when you can take a hit, process it, learn from it, and get moving again in record time, that's when you become dangerous. And don't think for a second that failure is just about business or goals. It's about life. Relationships fail, friendships fail, plans fail. It's going to happen. But if you can develop the habit of turning every failure into a lesson, you'll never truly lose. You either win or you learn. And if you keep learning, it's only a matter of time before you start winning consistently. One of the biggest mistakes people make is thinking failure is a sign to stop. No, it's a sign to adjust. It's feedback. If your GPS says wrong turn, you don't park the car and give up on your destination. You reroute. That's how you've got to treat your failures. Reroute. Try again. Keep moving. You've got to understand failure is temporary, but the lessons you gain from it are permanent. Those lessons compound over time. They stack. And after a while, you've got such a deep well of experience. You start making decisions with a clarity and confidence most people can't touch. They're guessing, you're calculating, they're hoping, you're predicting, and that's because you've been through it. You've been in the fire enough times to know how not to get burned. So when you're in the middle of a setback, when you've just taken a loss that makes you want to crawl into a hole, I need you to remember, this is where champions are built. Not in the moments when everything is going right, but in the moments when everything is falling apart and you choose to keep going anyway. This is where you sharpen your mind. This is where you develop the kind of wisdom that can't be bought. The truth is, failure is not your enemy. It's your partner in growth. It's the thing that's going to prepare you for the next level. And if you can stop fearing it, if you can start using it, there's nothing you can't accomplish. Because once you've learned how to turn your pain into power, once you've learned how to take a loss and come back smarter, faster, and stronger, there's nothing left to be afraid of. That's when you stop running from challenges. That's when you start seeking them out. Because you know no matter what happens, you're going to get better. And when you get to that point, when failure doesn't scare you anymore, you become unstoppable. You cannot become dangerously smart if the only voices you hear are your own. You can't grow if you're the sharpest person in every conversation you have. Some of you are stuck, not because you're not capable, but because you're comfortable being the smartest one in the room. It feels good to be the person with all the answers, to have everyone looking to you for direction, but that comfort is killing your growth. If you want to level up, if you want to develop the kind of mind that sees things others can't, you have to put yourself in spaces where you are not the most knowledgeable, where you are challenged, stretched, and sometimes even humbled. You need people around you who intimidate you in a good way, people whose knowledge makes you sit up straighter, whose insight makes you realize just how much more there is to learn. You've got to be in rooms where you take more notes than you speak. Rooms where you walk out feeling like your brain just got a workout. That's how you grow. That's how you sharpen your thinking. Iron sharpens iron, but if you keep surrounding yourself with plastic, you're not getting sharper. You're just getting comfortable. Too many people think growth is about collecting information, but real growth comes from friction. It comes from someone challenging your ideas, questioning your assumptions, forcing you to defend your thoughts with logic and evidence, not just feelings. It's uncomfortable, but it's necessary, because if you can't defend what you believe, you don't really understand it, and being around people who push you forces you to either get sharper or get left behind. I know some of you avoid these situations because you don't want to feel small. You don't want to be reminded of what you don't know. But that humility is where transformation happens. You've got to be willing to step into spaces where your ego takes a back seat, where you're not the one impressing everyone else, but the one being impressed. That's the only way to keep growing. The reality is, the smartest people in the world didn't get that way by accident. They sought out other great minds. They studied under mentors. They worked alongside people who could teach them something new every single day. They didn't isolate themselves in a bubble of praise and validation. They put themselves in situations where they were the student, even when they were already considered an expert. If you want to develop dangerous intelligence, you've got to build a network of people who stretch you mentally. People who think differently than you. People from different industries, different backgrounds, different cultures. Why? Because every perspective you encounter adds another tool to your mental toolbox. You start seeing problems from angles most people don't even consider. You start connecting dots across disciplines. You start developing a kind of layered understanding that's rare and incredibly valuable. But here's the catch. Being around smart, challenging people only works if you're willing to listen. You can't walk in thinking you know it all. You have to be willing to absorb, to ask questions, to admit when you're wrong. The ego will try to fight it. It will whisper, "You're just as smart as they are." But you've got to quiet that voice and remind yourself that you're here to grow, not to prove. And let's be real. Sometimes these people are going to make you uncomfortable in ways you don't like. They're going to call you out when your thinking is flawed. They're going to push you to read more, think deeper, work harder. They're going to make you realize that your good enough isn't anywhere near your potential. That's a gift, even if it stings in the moment. The dangerous mind understands that isolation is the enemy. You might be talented, you might be driven, you might even be disciplined, but if you limit yourself to your own thinking and the thinking of those who only agree with you, you're building walls instead of bridges. You're locking yourself in an echo chamber, and echo chambers don't produce greatness. They produce stagnation. Sometimes growth requires leaving the people you've been around for years. Not because they're bad people, not because they don't care about you, but because they're not pushing you anymore. They're too used to you being the one with the answers, and you've gotten used to them accepting those answers without challenge. You need to find new rooms, new conversations, new challenges that force you to level up again. And let me be clear, this isn't about using people. It's about contribution. When you surround yourself with brilliant minds, you don't just take, you give. You bring your strengths to the table. You add your unique perspective to the mix. It's not a one-way street, but the exchange of ideas is what creates growth on both sides. That's how you all get sharper together. The more you put yourself in these environments, the more you'll notice something. You'll start thinking faster, deeper, and with more precision. You'll start anticipating questions before they're even asked. You'll be able to dissect problems from multiple angles in minutes, and that's not because you suddenly became more talented. It's because you've been consistently challenged to think at a higher level. Eventually, you'll realize that these challenging relationships are more valuable than money. Money can get you opportunities, but sharp minds can give you the wisdom to multiply those opportunities. Sharp minds can help you avoid mistakes you didn't even know you were about to make. Sharp minds can take you from being good to being unstoppable. So if you want to become dangerously smart, stop looking for rooms where you shine the brightest and start looking for rooms where you have to reach just to keep up. Surround yourself with people who are where you want to be, people who force you to level up, people who make you uncomfortable in the best way possible. Because the truth is, if you're always the smartest one in the room, you're in the wrong room. The real power, the kind that makes you dangerously smart, comes from seeing what other people can't. Most people walk through life looking at the surface. They see what's obvious, they react to what's in front of them, they follow the same patterns everyone else is following. But the ones who are truly sharp, the ones who are operating on another level, have trained their minds to look deeper, to see the details others ignore, to connect the dots that seem unrelated to everyone else. They're not just living in the moment. They're thinking 3, 5, 10 steps ahead. When you develop this ability, you stop being reactive and start being strategic. You're not waiting for the next trend to hit. You're predicting it. You're not shocked when a problem shows up. You saw it coming months ago and already had a plan. You're not guessing. You're calculating. And the reason you can do that is because you've disciplined your mind to notice the patterns, the signals, the little pieces of information that most people overlook. You've got to train yourself to slow down and really observe. Don't just hear what people say. Listen to what they mean. Don't just look at what's happening. Ask why it's happening. Every situation you're in is filled with clues. Every conversation, every shift in behavior, every change in the environment, it's all data. The question is, are you paying attention? Most people aren't. They're too distracted, too busy reacting to what's loud, to notice what's quiet. But the truth is, the quiet details are often where the truth lies. The people who see what others miss aren't lucky. They've built that vision through practice. They've learned to step back and look at the big picture, but also to zoom in and see the smallest detail. They study patterns, they remember details. They ask more questions than the average person. They're not satisfied with surface answers. They dig until they find the root cause, and once they understand the root, they can predict the fruit. When you operate like this, you gain an advantage that's hard to compete with. Because while everyone else is playing checkers, you're playing chess. They're moving based on impulse. You're moving based on strategy. They're reacting to today. You're preparing for tomorrow. And over time, that gap becomes impossible for them to close. Part of seeing what others miss is learning to look at things from multiple perspectives. Most people get locked into one way of thinking. They believe their first interpretation of a situation is the only one, but a dangerously smart mind asks, what if I'm wrong? What's another way to see this? How would someone else interpret this same situation? By doing that, you open yourself up to insights others will never see because they're too attached to their own viewpoint. It's not just about seeing opportunities, it's also about seeing threats before they happen. A lot of people fail, not because they're not talented, but because they never saw the danger coming. They were blindsided by something they could have avoided if they'd been paying closer attention. A dangerous mind scans the horizon constantly. It watches for shifts in the environment, in people's behavior, in the market, in the culture. It doesn't panic, it prepares. You also have to be willing to connect dots that seem unrelated. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in history came because someone saw a connection nobody else noticed. They took an idea from one field and applied it to another. They saw a pattern in one place that explained a problem in another. That kind of thinking doesn't happen by accident. It happens because you've trained your mind to store information, to cross-reference it, to look for links instead of separations. The way you develop this vision is by being curious about everything. Not just the things you already care about. Learn about industries you're not in. Study history. Pay attention to psychology, technology, art, science, politics, because all of it shapes the world you live in. The more you understand, the more pieces you have to work with, and the more pieces you have, the easier it is to see the full picture. Here's the thing. People will start to notice when you see things they don't. At first, they might dismiss you. They'll think you're overanalyzing, reading too much into things. But over time, when what you said would happen starts happening, they'll start paying attention. And eventually, they'll start coming to you for advice, for direction, for clarity. That's when you know you've crossed over into dangerous territory. Because now you're not just seeing the game, you're influencing it. But be careful. This kind of vision comes with responsibility. When you can see what's coming, when you can spot patterns before others do, you have to use that ability wisely. It's not about manipulating people, it's about positioning yourself and those around you to win. It's about avoiding unnecessary losses, seizing opportunities before they disappear, and creating strategies that keep you ahead of the curve. This level of thinking is exhausting if you're not disciplined. You can't just turn it on when you feel like it. You have to live it. You have to be constantly aware, constantly processing, constantly asking questions, and yes, that's work. But it's worth it. Because once you see the world differently, you can never go back. You can never unsee the patterns, the signals, the truth behind the noise. When you learn to see what others miss, you stop competing in the same way as everyone else. You're not fighting over scraps because you already saw where the next feast would be. You're not chasing trends because you're already working on the thing that will replace them. You're not stressing over last-minute problems because you identified them weeks ago and handled them before they became crises. That's the difference between being smart and being dangerously smart. Being smart means you can solve the problem in front of you. Being dangerously smart means you can solve the problem before it even arrives. And when you operate like that, you move through life with a confidence most people can't understand. Not because you think you'll never fail, but because you know you've already prepared for what's next. So train your eyes, train your ears, train your mind to notice what others ignore, learn to dig deeper, think longer, and connect wider, because once you can see what others miss, you'll never have to chase the game again. You'll be the one setting the rules.